Okay. Hello again. How is everybody? It's interactive. Come on, guys. I'd like to bring my panelists out. Would everybody please join me up here? We're here to talk about social media and socializing and what works in the Asian market. So first, one of the most social people I know, Rob McDermott. Jay Attaway, Benny Rubin, Sari Trasulo, and last but not least, Mark Wood. So everybody, for a moment, starting with Mark. Kill the intro music, yes. Mark, why don't we talk for a moment about what you do and what your overall view is, how important social media is to your daily life in terms of your work life, not what you do late at night. I don't know what a chat room you're on, but.
Hello, everybody. My name's Mark Wood. I actually manage Imogen Heap, who's going to be playing a little later on. For her, social media, and for us, social media, you know, is changed the world. I think probably the biggest change is that 7 or 8 years ago, I was a big fan of Oasis, as we all were, and your access to that band would be a postcard through the post every 6 months, plug in a release or a tour, and that would be it. You know, maybe an interview, an enemy. That would be your only access to your favorite bands. But these days, you can have hourly access to your bands, and that's exciting and yeah, gives a whole pile of opportunities for artists to think about and work with.
Sorry?
Hi, I'm Sari from MTV. I guess for MTV, it's just been in so many ways social media. It's allowed us to reach out to our audience. It's allowed the audience to reach out to us. And I think for MTV, one of the things is that, I mean, we make content. And good content, when it's good, it becomes a kind of cultural currency, and it adds social value for our audience, and it allows us to, be there for and give something for our audience to talk about and to tweet about. So I think in terms of social media, it's just, I mean, the scale and the depth of what we're able to do is just amplified.
You'd have to agree that early on, MTV was a monologue. MTV was, as we said, we spoke last night, it was a mass media tool. It was from the mountain down to the people. And now we're in this era of dialogue. So what is the real dialogue between an MTV fan in Asia and MTV Asia? What is the feedback loop?
In terms of the tools that we use, or I mean,
right. Yeah. How do you interact with your fans? How do you know when you're not getting it right? You know, you said you make great content. Right. How do you know when you're not making great content?
When there's no noise, when there's no buzz, when there's no response. I mean, it's all about that. I think.
But isn't there a response saying this sucks?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as much as there's a response that says, I mean, today, we brought in a show called Skins, the U.S. version, which is, as everyone knows, is very controversial. And and came out in Straits Times Live today, and there were response from parents and from kids. I mean, I had one tweet that said, "I hate MTV for not bringing in the UK version," which is a lot raunchier. Mm-hmm. But you also have tweets saying, this is my life, and this is the life of a lot of the audience. And I think this allows that loop to happen, which is, I think, very crucial for us to be able to kind of respond and to grow.
Okay.
With the audience, yeah.
Benny?
My name is Benny Rubin. I work as a partner with the labels in helping communicate with the fans of major Western artists in Japan. So the daily communication stuff. What information are Bieber fans getting today, and are they getting in their own language? And I do that for a large number of artists.
What did Justin do this morning?
I'm sure my team will be more than happy to select the information. Of course, Universal does all the heavy lifting with these things. Okay. But there's certain aspects of it that we focus on.
And what works in Japan, or what doesn't work in Japan? What doesn't translate? What doesn't travel?
What doesn't travel is the normal workload of communicating with fans every day is burdened by the artist, of course. It may be 1 message a day, maybe 6 messages a day, maybe 10, maybe 50. The number of those messages that actually reach a non-English speaking fan is very small. And as they get younger, it's even less and less. So if you're talking about an artist with a very young fan base, for example, Miley Cyrus or someone like that, if I don't actually physically select and translate the item and hand it to them, they will not have gotten it. And the news media has faced the Japanese artists. So they're not going to pick up on this news and run with it either. So it's kind of like it comes down to select people that are bilingual, that can handle the actual informational transaction that needs to fuel these fan communities.
Okay. Jay, you are the king of Twitter in Hong Kong.
Yes, that's not the title I give myself, but
That's what I've heard from other people.
I'm a tech journalist. I've lived in Hong Kong for 14 years. I started writing about social media sort of very on, and not just writing about it. I felt the best way to really be able to talk about it was to live it. And in the process of doing that, I've built up a fan base of about 105,000 followers.
Wow. And what's your dialogue with your audience?
Well, I'm not a musician. I don't have labels. I don't have these other intermediaries to sort of build up fans or translate tweets or do things like that. So for me, it has to be presence. I have to be there online, on Twitter, as much as I can in order to sort of stay connected to them.
And the dialogue with them? Is it?
Yeah, it's
you
great.
Tweet, I write you back. Do you answer me?
Absolutely. In fact, if I don't, the whole thing starts to fall apart. There's so many little things that you can do, even if we don't engage in deep dialogue. Twitter's a great place where a simple retweet or a simple thank you, just these little acts of gratitude are so vital to the relationship. So it's not just dialogue. It's about building this connection between each other. And I think that's really important, I think, for artists and fans as well, is to establish something more meaningful between you.
Well, last but not least, on the far end, before you say anything, so about 12 years ago, I was asked to put a panel together at a NARM convention. NARM is the U.S. Retail Association, National Association of Record Merchants. And I went to a friend, Steinman, help me, at Warner. No, Steinman, head of digital. I'm blanking. Oh, this is terrible. Anyway, I said, who's the smartest guy out there? I want somebody that no one's ever seen before. Who's the smartest guy out there? And he goes, you got to meet this guy, Rob McDermott. He's brilliant. And you're working with a band at the time called Ecstatic?
Static X, yeah.
Static X. Yeah. And Rob did a panel in Las Vegas and just killed. And I think there were 14 people on the panel. It was a chamber orchestra. It was a very large panel. When you started out with Static X.
We freaked them out in 1999 talking about MP3s.
Exactly.
It was a retail panel.
It was frightening. These MP3 things might have an effect on your business. Social media back then was AOL chat boards and message boards.
Yeah, it was bulletin board systems.
It was bulletin boards.
Yeah.
And so what's your view of the evolution of all this?
Listen.
Todd Steinman.
I
had to do
wow.
that. Sorry, I had to pull that out.
I wouldn't be able to pull that out. It's the next. I don't even know where to begin because I'm so excited about just watching how it's all kind of grown. From bulletin board systems where people were able to go. What I saw in the years that I managed Lincoln, I'll use that as an example because that was the best thing that I saw from 2000 to
You had this band Lincoln Park, I think.
Was the bulletin board systems that I saw different countries, specifically the Indonesians and the Filipinos, and that would really kind of build their own worlds in the bulletin board systems and communicate with the rest of the world, was just an amazing thing to see back in 2000, 2001. There'd be a thread that would say Lincoln Park Indonesian fans here, and there'd be 10,000 messages on it. And then just to do that, so now that technology has taken that thing and turned it into, instead of a one-way, hey, I'm a big fan, oh yeah, so am I, to, hey, I'm a big fan, so am I, oh, me too, and me too, and me too, and been able to take what was really 10,000 messages and turn them into 1 million messages almost instantaneously through a system has been the most brilliant achievement in communication across the world that I've really ever seen. And as a manager, it makes me feel good that you can continually have that dialogue.
And how, as that grew, how did you manage that growth of scale? How do you continue when it's a small bulletin board and you've got somebody who's sort of your webmaster and he's chatting with the fans. I remember Warner used to have people that would sit and chat with everybody. Now you've got millions and millions of tweets, millions of fans, millions of check-ins. How do you manage that experience?
You don't manage it. You let it manage itself. You've got to let people, the community polices itself. No matter what anyone tries to control or anything like that, we did, I guess the best thing I could say is we watched it grow. You know, one of the funniest things that happened back in 2007, Lincoln was putting out the record Minutes to Midnight, and we had retooled the entire web system. And we all of a sudden put up a clean bulletin board system, right? It was a new system, all that stuff. So, and the songs were just getting out. They were different than the first two records. And the first day and a half, the bulletin board was full of negative comments. We're like, holy shit, what do we do?
So how did you control that?
You don't. It cleaned itself up over, you know, you let all the haters get out there. I mean, listen, I don't know how people talk about it, but in any system of groups of people, there's haters. They're going to do it. They're going to just beat the crap out of a band or something just to do it, just because they're anonymous and they can do it. So when they go through it and everyone's being negative, you let the community just keep, you know, oh, Lincoln Park sucks. I mean, you know, no, they don't. You're an idiot. Get off the site. You know what I mean? Like those type of things. That's the conversation that you get, and you have to let that happen. It's the natural progression of a conversation.
Jay, thoughts on control?
Oh, you're crazy to sort of go out and have this concocted plan where you think, all right, we're going to start, you know, Monday, and our campaign's going to run through the next few months, and we're going to get to this destination. We're going to measure our metrics, and you know we want this sort of return at the end of it. I think that's a general strategy that most people, you know, go at social media with these days, but they miss opportunities with this. The social media is about being alive and present in the moment and being ready to jump on an opportunity that you had no idea was going to happen. You know, something out of the blue, somebody says something happens, and you're ready to react to that unexpectedness, that serendipity. That is where the magic happens in social media.
Sari, you work with a lot of artists at MTV. Who do you see in the Asian market that has done it right? And I'll put you on the spot. Who do you think possibly has done it wrong?
Can we start with the right?
Can we start with the right? Yeah, we'll start with the right.
I think if we bring it back to a lot of the regional and Korean artists, I think they've done it right. I think.
Anybody in particular? Anyone you've seen said, "No, that was a great That was a great campaign," or the way they handled dealing with their fans was heads and shoulders above other people.
I shouldn't be naming.
Do a shout out. Yeah, name it. Go for it.
Gosh.
Where's the lady from Corpcom? This is the point I was telling her it would get difficult.
He's gonna get me fired.
Yes, really. Who
No
wants
one's
to
gonna
hire
play for
her?
us anymore after this.
Right. Okay. No, but you can talk about who's. We'll skip who's doing it wrong, but who's done a great job.
Let me talk about some Malaysian bands. I mean, I think Malaysian bands are really growing right now, and a little bit, you know, they need more exposure. So I'm going to give a shout out. People like Estrange, people like Pop Shavit. I mean, they have great ideas. They're reaching out to the fans, and MTV has a site called mtvmusic.my. And we try to give that kind of a platform for reaching out and, you know, posting kind of like content on music and performances from these bands. And I think what a lot of the bands do is they do there's a local connection, and that local connection just kind of grows and grows and grows. I think on an international level, the kind of, you know, mad fandom of, I mean, a lot of, I think what's really good is when it doesn't seem controlled, when it has a life of its own, as Rob said. So, you know, I mean, I think a lot of the Asian bands are actually doing a lot about connecting with the fans. I mean, you can get an indie scene, the indie scene here in Malaysia, for example. You can get a band, and just from tweets alone, or without any kind of marketing dollars in the traditional sense, have thousands of people come to some obscure kind of venue to watch them. So, you know, I think that's connecting the local level to kind of achieve a bigger scale. I think that's what a lot of the Asian bands are doing quite well right now.
Benny, who have you worked with that has done a really good job?
Because I always think from the fan perspective, and fans always want more. If they could, you know, have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with their favorite artist, they would. You know what I mean? So for me,
as long as the fan picks up the check.
So I feel like
It's okay.
one thing that stands out doesn't have anything to do with social media, but it was a fantastic moment in Japan fan history, was Andrew WK doing a 24-hour signing. For 24 hours
What?
straight. This is, you know, years ago. This is probably even before the internet really took hold, but that kind of thing is like, he was there 24 hours. They filmed the whole thing. Any fans can come from anywhere in Japan and come and shake his hand. And this is all orchestrated by Universal. It went well. The footage is great. The fans are happy. Andrew WK is super. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of thing is like, that's a win, win, win. Now, the difference in this, if this happened now, we would have really excellent, you know, Twitter and social media coverage on it. And that content would have traveled probably even further and been more exciting for every single one of those fans that was highlighted in this 24-hour signing period. Right. So I think currently, I mean, we could highlight specific bands that have done really nice things for their fans.
Such as? Go ahead.
I think it's
Because
really...
the idea here is to give examples to
okay,
everybody of who's doing it right, and if you want to touch on someone anonymously who did it wrong.
So, for example, I saw there's a Korean group called 4 Minute, and Korean artists are doing extremely well in Japan right now. Just doing extremely well. What? They're doing everywhere. And it's because they're really, you know, professional acts. They're really great, I think. They're really excellent. As far as pop goes, they nail it.
Okay.
And after one of the showcases, it was a pretty big showcase, they stood, these, you know, 4 or 5, how many girls in 4 Minute? There must be 5 of them, right? They stood and they gave a high five to every single one of their fans, and they, like, you know, had that kind of, after a while they were a little bit tired. You could see in their cheeks and their arms a little bit tired. Every single one of their fans. And I was walking down the stairs after this, and I heard one Japanese executive ask the other one, why are they standing out front and, you know, high-fiving all these people? And the other one said to the other one, like, you know, that's what the Koreans do. The artists do. They really want to reach out to their fans in this way. And I don't know if this is a, you know, a microcosm for bigger stuff that's happening, or this is a specific example, and Japanese artists, it's not like they're not doing it, but I thought that was kind of interesting, like, moment, you know, where we have an artist coming from overseas. They come less. I mean, they come a lot, but they come less than a Japanese artist would. They're putting in the effort. They're putting in the time, a little pain in the arm, whatever it is. It's exciting for the fans. I gave them a high five. I was excited.
Cool. And it could be anonymous. What have you seen that's gone horribly wrong? What was a bad implementation?
I see.
You don't have to name the artist,
Well,
but if you do, it'd really be good. There's a free lunch in it for you.
I think any artist that's making an effort in any way to connect with fans is great. But I can highlight a
Okay,
a
thank you.
brand
So,
I can highlight a brand campaign that I think isn't going well in social media in Japan.
Okay.
Every time, I find that when Japanese brands get in social media, a lot of times they spend a lot of time thanking people. So if you follow them, you end up getting 400 thank you messages in, like, you know, this huge thing, and then you quickly unfollow them. And some of the alcohol brands have to make disclosure, and they're like, if you're under 20, you cannot interact with us, like in Japan. So I ended up opening my Twitter one morning and having, I think it was like maybe 150 messages from a major alcohol brand, like, hey, thanks, blah, blah, blah. If you're not 20, then you can't interact with us. Like, you know, 400 replies in their stream. Oh. So I think, as you're saying, if you try to control it, and you are an entity that has to control it, then you're going to run into some trouble with, you know, people that might genuinely be interested.
Okay. Rob, you've sort of not reinvented, but you sort of reset the clock for yourself in the last year in terms of what you're working on, what you're focusing on. But you've had great experience over the last 12 years. What are the lessons you're taking to the newer artists that you're working with?
That the things that I've seen with social media have really, we've only really done half of it. And Lincoln actually ended up doing it well, but I see a lot of people only do half of it, which is go online, talk to people via online. And so what I'm telling my new artists is I said, listen, there's a real humanization element you have to add to social media. Not only are you just going to talk to them online, but when you connect with them, you've got to connect with as many as you can at shows, meet and greets. I mean, Lincoln was the best at it. I mean, they'd meet 100 fans a night, you know, fan club fans and stuff like that. And it was by lottery. So literally, you didn't know if you were going to get to go. So they were able to connect what they were saying online, back it up in the person's face, and it would create this great, you know, cycle of anticipation and the experience, and it would just keep going and going, you know. So now what I tell all my young artists is I say, listen, you have to, sorry, No, I'm just teasing you.
I'm keeping in touch with my fan base. They're like they're loving us.
I just love it. I love doing that to people. Sorry. So what I was trying to say is you got to humanize it, you know.
Hello.
And you got to get in front of people.
Wait a second, Jake. I love it. Okay.
That was awesome, Jen.
Okay.
What happens in Vegas stays on Facebook.
Anyway, so let me finish that.
It's devolving. There's
I
the
know,
control
it's
factor.
great.
It's gone
No,
out the
you
window.
can't control it.
It's gone out the window.
Anyway, get in front of your fans. Back up what you're saying online to them. They will actually come back more and more. They'll talk about it. It's an experience. If you can give as many people an experience to their face, they take it and they amplify it via social media. That's what I tell all my young bands. My quote unquote is, you better know the first 500 fans in every city you play.
But
by
the
name.
most interesting thing I've learned in the last 2-3 years in talking to a lot of indie artists is when you talk to them about, well, you know, of course you're on Facebook, of course you're on Twitter, and they go, I don't have time for it. I'm making music. I'm making music. Somebody else has to do that for me.
In fact, Twitter's just asked us how do musicians manage their time on social media.
Right?
I have no idea. I mean, to me, Twitter's an enormous time sink. Anybody who thinks, oh, yeah, social media is easy. No, it's a huge investment. It's something's got to give. I've given up on email. I'm happier this way. I think real time's better than.
You have?
Well, not completely. No, I still have to deal with email, but the amount of time that I spend on it is significantly less, and I use more of my time to deal with social media instead. We only have so many hours in the day. Musicians are no different. You know, we've got to sort of. When we were talking, let's not reference the green room, but we were talking earlier about how we could manage time better, and I suggested possibly, you know, the triage approach, where not every fan out there is the same. Some of them are bigger influencers, they're gatekeepers, and if you do have a limited amount of time, that maybe it's better to spend that with your super fans. I think you disagreed with that, though.
Oh, me?
Yeah, Benny.
I feel like every fan has the potential to be a super fan like that. And the thing that triggers it is...
Super fan or stalker?
That's a whole other story. No, I think like you don't know an artist. For example, this is a true story. In 2008, 2009, I played bass for a Sony artist that was just getting started, did a little bit of touring. I had the experience. I went back to Japan and kept going with business. It wasn't really for me. But you know, you get fans. You meet someone, they don't know who you are. You're the backing band bassist for some unknown Sony artist. But because they met you and they shook your hand and you know, made them happy at that moment because you came off stage and smiled at them, they're your fan. So if I had some sort of system where I'm measuring clout in the audience, how many Twitter followers do they have, how many of these people are going to be, you know? You don't know. And the same thing is, someone doesn't have any fans. Oh, they have 5 Twitter followers. I'm not going to waste any time communicating with them. 1 month later, they have, you know, 15,000 because they just broke some weird thing and some story. You know, you just never know. So I think, sure, you can tier your fans and you can think about it in those terms. You can be good to everyone. You can try to make content that everyone wants to share. You know.
Okay. Mark, how does Imogen manage her time with social media? Is it scheduled? Is it serendipitous? Do you have to ride her to do that, or is she proactive?
She embraced social media incredibly naturally. She found it hugely exciting to talk to fans, but also to listen to fans. That was the main difference. You talk about dialogue, and for her, that's really, really important. Is that she listens to fans and she finds that exciting, and it's not. You have to manage your time, but it's not like I must do 20 minutes of Twitter today, you know, and it's a chore. For her, it's natural. And we've extended that. She's started to, with the new music we're putting out, is to use social media to invite her community to send in sounds and inspiration. And from a creative point of view, she's found that extremely exciting and stimulating. So we've taken, you know, it's a genuine two-way conversation, and it's now seeping into her music and into output. And so it's natural in terms of time, yeah. We do have one guy, a chap, called James Clark, who runs her website and monitors the boards, and he's become very important, not only to us, but to the fans. So you talk about letting social media go and do its own thing. Within our world, there is one voice that the fans know has got Imogen's ear, James Clark. So when he chips in as a webmaster, in his red ink and says, you know, the fans know this is an official statement from the Imogen Heap camp, you know, and that's quite important as well in time management. There's people around her that have got, you know, the respect of the fans and of Imogen, and that's really, really helpful.
It's good as long as it's authentic. Back when I was at EMI, pre-Twitter, pre-Facebook, when it was blogging, Norah Jones started exploding. And so I asked Norah Jones' management if she would blog. And they said, and she came back and said, I don't have time. So we then said, well, maybe her wardrobe person can blog for her. I don't have time. We got down to the truck driver. He didn't have time. So she never, no one had time, she never blogged. That was the end of the Norah Jones blogging experience. And it was a tough one. Everybody just went, nah, can't be bothered.
I think the one thing about Imogen's Twitter is that everybody knows it's her tweeting. Mm-hmm. There is no record company, you know, anybody can spot the corporate, you know, suddenly Imogen's in the third person, oh, the artist is in the third, but it's so easy to spot. And I think that kind of integrity is very important to protect, you know, so I would avoid getting the wardrobe assistant to,
right,
you know, probably silence is better than you know,
probably.
Statement.
There was a question that went by on the Twitter screen here that's an interesting one about what was the feeling about whether you should buy placement on Twitter via a recommended link versus the organic. Benny, you spent a lot of time with it. Have you bought positioning on Twitter?
No, I don't think it seems like something I would need to do right now. I think the way you buy fans' attention, if you really do want to buy it, is you pay a fan with respect and you ask them, hey, there's a bunch of news out there, grab a bunch of it, share it with your friends. Or the labels hire support like me that basically says, okay, we got a bunch of information about an artist. Let's translate select information pieces of it that the fan community doesn't have, because we can read everything the fan community has and they don't have this information, and give it to them. So they're essentially paying me to facilitate more fuel for the fan fire. And the interesting, I think, especially about young fans, is when it comes from the artist, maybe like having a branded type element to it, it seems a little bit superficial, but on the information side, everything's branded already. If they go to the magazine online that they like, there's ads next to it. So they're not really that concerned with it. They like the information. Right. That's the key. And that is content, you know. And that's why when MTV writes something great about an artist that we know that the Japanese fan base didn't grab, we can beat MTV, you know, Japan to it, grab it and give it to the fans with a little synopsis, and they're thrilled. You know what I mean?
Cool. Questions from the audience? Silence. Not a single question? Okay.
We're all asking them through Twitter.
They're tweeting questions. Is there anything else?
Someone asked on the Twitter, why don't we say what are the worst cases for artists?
What are the worst cases?
Well, I think the reason why we don't talk about worst cases is because, one...
But aren't they instructive?
Well, they're not resonating super far. You know what I mean? It's not like they're not making it very far out there. The things that don't succeed don't travel very far. That's the feeling that I have. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean...
Okay. So I guess we'll take the last minute to, what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle?
Yeah, what is your Twitter, what's your...
At Radius Music.
At Radius Media Group?
Music.
At Radius Music.
Yeah.
I'm just Satris.
Satris?
Yes.
At Benny Rubin, very complicated. BENNYRUBIN. No need to follow me, though.
Okay.
I'm not a self-promoter in that way.
Spinal Tap?
I'm looking at you.
I'm at J Oatway.
At MadMax71.
And if there's still no questions, we're going to call it a day. Go have lunch. Enjoy. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much to Ted and everyone. That was a really interesting discussion on social networking.